All right, guys, I'm just out for a walk, and look who's here, this lovely lady. Can you see her? Yeah, that's a snapping turtle, and she's burying some eggs in the ground, I assume. But a lot of times what these snapping turtles will do is dig multiple holes, but only put the eggs in one or two of them in order to you know, get predators off of the trail. But she's a pretty lady. She's not very happy that I'm here, but I'll let her go. There's a car coming. So, yeah. What a day.
All right. Hey now.
Mr. Kovacs Class. It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
You might learn a ton.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
He's interesting too.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
And he's super cool.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
All right, friends, here I am. I'm in the marshy wetland area of the Little Ausable River here in Peru, not too far from where I live. And you know, wetlands are really good because they kind of serve as a buffer. So especially here, not too far away are all these farm fields. Instead of just a raging river, a lot of groundwater will flow into this kind of swamp. And then there's a lot of filtering that happens with some of the animals otherwise, plankton and animals and even protists that are in there. So you can imagine there's lots of living things in there. What if I told you there was a monster living in there? An immortal monster. A monster that could shoot darts out of the ends of the tentacles. It could eat things bigger than its body. You'd say, Mr. Kovac, you're probably crazy. I might be crazy, but they're there. They're really there. Today you're going to meet the Hydra.
The Hydra. Legendary monster with multiple heads. The Hydra. Legend says that Hercules fought the Hydra. Every time he cut off one head, two would grow in its place. Two would grow in its place. He cut off one head, and two grow in its place. Oh. And the name Hydra is associated with many, many, many evil things, like Hydra from the Marvel Universe. Hydra. Wait, did someone say Hydra? But these are not mythological creatures, they're real. And they have tentacles. And they are hungry. And they're out there. This is the Hydra. So like Hydra are weird. They're freshwater animals. These are Hydra here. Their closest relatives are in the phylum Cnidaria. Really, Cnidaria, silent C. All right, let's see what you might know from the Cnidaria. You probably know jellyfishes, right? They are Cnidarians. But coral and sea anemones are also animals. Even though those guys are like, coral and sea anemones are fairly sessile. They don't move too much. They're still animals. They eat. Okay? Now, in this phylum of Cnidaria, you have a lot of animals that are like the floaters. We call them medusas. They float, and they have tentacles that stretch down. Think of again, sea jellies, jellyfish. And then you have some that we call polyps, which don't float. They attach themselves to something and then stick their tentacles up. What do they have in common? Of course, they're built pretty much exactly the same. This one's upside down. And they have these tentacles because they are hunters. They are killers. They are predators. And here's a Hydra. Hydra come usually in either a kind of a brown, or believe it or not, there's some green Hydra. And those green Hydra usually live symbiotically with some algae. Pretty cool. And when Hydras go out to hunt, they just attach themselves to maybe the underside of a leaf or duckweed or a little stick floating, and they just wait. And they wait for prey to come by, and when prey comes by, they stab it. Kind of. It's like, here, this is a mosquito baby larva. Here's a hydra. This hydra's saying, oh, that'd be a good lunch. He caught it with his tentacles. He basically, at the end of each tentacles, they have things called nematocysts. Nematocysts are stinging cells, and it's pretty wild. They're like little teeny tiny arrow harpoons that shoot a poison. And at the same time, they shoot a poison, and they're attached with like a tissue, a thread tissue. So you can like even wrap your prey up. They can't get away. So cnidarians use those to catch their prey. They paralyze them and then usually eat their prey whole. If you've ever gone swimming in the ocean where there are jellyfish, you might get stung by a jellyfish. It doesn't feel good. Remember, it's all relative to size. A sting that might kill a little microscopic critter is probably just going to hurt bad on you. All right, so here's a hydra. He's used his tentacles and he's stung this. This is a Daphnia, a water flea. And the cool thing about this is that this Daphnia is like bigger than the hydra's mouth, which is right here. So the hydra can actually open its mouth up wider than its food, shove its food in there, and then the hydra only has basically one cavity, not even like a real digestive system. When they eat food, food goes in there. Oh my gosh, that's a big meal. He'll be able to fit that in there. He'll stretch around it. He releases digestive enzymes and breaks that food down into pieces, into carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and other, vitamins and minerals that he can use. And anything he doesn't use, they do get rid of. Yeah, here's a hydra who's had lunch. There's his lunch in his gut. Now, it's only a one way. Like there's the waste has to go out the same way it came in, so that's kind of weird for hydras. You can see we call this their foot. They can like stick themselves to things. And then hydras have what we call radial symmetry. They have this symmetry where like they're mirror images of themselves in a bunch of different directions. Now we learned about the hydra before, if you remember, when we talked about asexual reproduction, because hydras bud. Yeah, to have a baby hydra, you don't need boy and girl hydras. They don't make sperm cells or egg cells. All they do is they assign some cells on the side of their bodies to start growing. And what's interesting about hydras too is like, if it appears if you took a hydra and you cut them into pieces, if you cut them in half, those two halves would grow into two new hydras, right? Like, and even there's been experiments where they've taken a hydra and they put it in a blender. Can you imagine? And then the cells were all scattered all over the place, and the cells themselves were able to rearrange and copy themselves as needed to build the body of the animal back. That's why we call hydras may just about be immortal. Cool. Very cool. All right, so here's a bunch of hydras hanging out together, hunting, right? Waiting for things to come by. That's today's spirit animal, the hydra.